What's going on, guys? So this content is going to be strictly for those who I'll be reaching out to manually. Um, this is not for the YouTube community. I'm no longer reaching out to you. Um, I'm going to kind of try to lay out what this gang stalking thing is, and um, so. Um, I began being gang stalked, to my knowledge, where I was being sexually assaulted along with drugging in 2011. At that time, I had an apartment. I was living in the Midwest, and I was living alone. I don't have any children. I don't do drugs. At that particular time, I wasn't dating. I didn't have anyone in my life romantically. And I'm a spiritual person. I was a spiritual person. Can't really say that I fit that category any longer. But, that's for a different conversation, I suppose. I began being drugged and sexually assaulted, like I said, in 2011 while I was living in my apartment. It took me about a year to discover that I was indeed being, I would say confirmed, that I was indeed being assaulted sexually. And I say that because when you're being drugged, you're given a date rape drug or a tranquilizer, while you're sleeping, you don't have the benefit of being able to see your attacker. So it did take me about a year for me to really confirm that I was being sexually assaulted while being sedated. I discovered this when I was forced into a shelter. Now, when I say I was forced into a shelter, when you're being gang stalked, there's different kinds of programs that you're placed in. And some of it looks different, some of it's similar. For the most part, the similarities will be you're being stalked, you're being surveillanced 24/7. You're being surveillanced while you're in your apartment, while you just 24/7 all day around the clock. You're being surveillanced by local police, satellite in my case, communities, your neighbors, anyone that these individuals have solicited will be participating in your being monitored and your being surveillanced. One of the ways they get like your doctors, your nurses, and family members even involved with this crime is by either blackmailing, scare tactics, threatening the same situation, or even paying them off. The gang stalking is not anything new. It's been around for a very long time. It was most popular during Nazi Germany. It was something called the Stasi. If you want to look it up, is where they first began gang stalking groups of people by using the community to participate. And so when I was in this shelter, I knew that something was happening. I knew something was going on with me. And I happened to catch my being sexually assaulted on audio. So that was when I was able to confirm that I was indeed being sexually assaulted. I was able to hear everything that transpired. And from that point on, I began maneuvering more meticulously and more carefully about my surroundings. Some of the symptoms of gang stalking that everyone deals with, that everyone experiences, would be, like I said, the job mobbing. They typically pay or solicit in some nefarious way people who work with you to harass you while you're at work, to provoke you to anger, to slander and sabotage your name, all in the hopes of you losing your job. Because if you don't have a job, then you don't have income coming in, so that, the hopes is to force you out into the homeless community where you are nobody. You don't have a face, you don't have a voice, you're none and void. And so therefore they can continue to perpetrate these crimes against you, and you seem crazy, or you're not even going to be listened to or heard. One of the main features of gang stalking is just surveillance, and you're being monitored and surveilled, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, everywhere you go, even while you're sleeping. And in my case, I'm being monitored so that when I do fall asleep, they have an opportunity to sexually assault me. So while I was living in my apartment, it was more severe because, they have more alone time with me. But essentially, they do want to move you out into an environment that looks like homelessness. They don't really want you doing anything that makes you look like a normal functioning part of society. And so it's one of the things that's frustrating, because a lot of my videos, I'm very angry and I'm very frustrated, and I'm using choice language because in those videos, within that 24 hours of that day, I was raped. And, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced being sexually assaulted, but when you're raped and you're sexually assaulted, and you know that this is something that is happening to you unlawfully, and it's happening every time you do something as normal and as frequent as sleeping, it can really throw you into a very enraged state of mind. And not only that, but when you get up and leave your environment to go out into the world, you're being stalked and surveillanced by the very people that have just sexually violated you, or they have facilitated your being sexually violated. So in a lot of my videos, I'm yelling and screaming because I've just been sexually assaulted that day. It's insane when you're not incarcerated, you're not in an environment where these sort of things may take place. You're in your home. And in my case, I'm actually in a shelter that's supposed to, prevent sexual violence. And it's happening here. And this is another element to this gang stalking, is that it's worldwide. The perpetrators have a long, long hand. They're able to infiltrate any kind of environment. Like I said, either through extortion, through blackmail, through fear-based, through greed, whatever, they were able to use, they have the ability to use it. And they're able to get these people to participate. So I know your questions are going to be, have I gone to the FBI? Yes. Have I, reported these things? Yes. This has been happening to me since 2011, and I have reported it. I have police reports. But when you are reporting a crime to the very criminals who are committing the crime, it's going to be very difficult for you to get justice. And if you pay attention to the channel that I have, this is like, I've had probably 7 or 8 channels since this all began happening to me in 2017. And every one of those channels have been shadow banned. And shadow ban basically means the police will set up an algorithm on your channel so that your channel, your videos will only go out to who they want it to go out to. And in my case, it's only going out to people who are involved in facilitating my being drugged and sexually assaulted and sexually being enslaved. So when you look at some of the videos that, are about the police, there's only like 8, 7, 9 views. And then if you go to someone else's channel, you can see them simply talking about a hamburger, how they had a hamburger that day, and there's 60, 70 views. And that's because their channel is actually being viewed by the public. Mine is not. It's being viewed by a selective few people who they have chose for them to be able to see my channel. And typically those are people who are involved with the crime. So now I've had to resort to going out and handing out information about what's happening to me manually, which I'm perfectly okay with, but this is the extent of what they will do to try to silence me so they can continue to perpetuate this crime against me. So there's not a lot of females who have come forward to talk about this happening to them, but there are victims besides myself. But I do want to introduce you to someone who was a victim of this gang stalking, who ultimately devised a plan to have himself killed by the police because he just couldn't take it anymore. His program was different from mine in the sense that he was struggling with something that was different from my attack. I'm going to show you a couple of his videos. So this is the video of his testimony where he's talking about
with a heavy heart that I am in front of you now,
making a plan to provoke the police to take him out, which is essentially what happened.
It's really unfortunate that I have to make this video. See, I am a victim of covert harassment and electronic harassment and gang stalking. I'm what's called a targeted individual. There are thousands of targeted individuals in the United States of America. And we unfortunately are subjected to some pretty heinous treatment, which I'll detail in this video. You can find out more about what a targeted individual is simply by Googling or YouTubing the words targeted individual or gang stalking, and you'll see the videos and postings and articles and stuff like that.
So if you want to go and watch the rest of that video, it's you can just type in, like I said, gang stalking, and his name is Myron Mays. You can get it from this video by pausing it. But he ultimately lost his life because he just couldn't deal with being gang stalked any longer. And you can also see exactly what he did to ultimately cause his death. It was on the news, and this is about 6 years ago. So this is a very serious crime. It's a global crime. There's a lot of victims. There's a lot that goes into why you're chosen. But I just really employ those who are watching this to really look at the message of the crime that's being committed and understand that my anger is coming from being enslaved sexually on a daily basis and not having anyone to hear you when you're telling them that this is happening. Be well.